Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, that was a blast the other day getting to break down. I guess it was yesterday. It doesn't feel like it's only been a day because so much is going on in the NBA right now. We did our live stream. Oh, we had so many people in talking about the Kyrie Irving trade. We got more to break down on that, but man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. Shouts to everybody who swung in there is absolutely incredible. No matter where you came from, whether it was YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or I don't know, MySpace somehow or something, in that realm. It was awesome to have so many people in there. There was one point where I had the YouTube stream up on a separate window, and the chat was going so fast I couldn't even read it. Like
Yep.
it was, so many people in there, and it wasn't people just spamming nonsense either. It was like just people with thoughts on the trade and the trades that didn't happen and
Yep.
a million questions about the fallout. It was really cool, and it was awesome to spend. I mean, we went for basically an hour yesterday on it, and guess what? There's still more to come because this
There's
trade is
more.
not complete yet.
So the trade is not complete. And the reason why is because, well, potentially it could be expanded into a bigger deal. Potentially one ring Fleet and Spencer Dinwiddie with draft assets going from the Brooklyn Nets. So this could go from a 2-team deal into a 3-team deal, whereas effectively, as much as we look at it as Brooklyn sending Dinwiddie to the Raptors, that's not really what would happen. It would be the Mavs would be sending Spencer Dinwiddie to the Raptors. It would turn into a 3-team trade. The Nets would send some sort of draft compensation. That's not clear right now, but it's sounding like these discussions are happening. There is a little bit of urgency because the Mavs want Kyrie Irving in uniform for them on Wednesday. They want him in practice tomorrow. So this needs to get done sometime soon, and that does provide a little bit of urgency beyond just, hey, the trade deadline is Thursday.
It's funny because we're at a point where anytime you make these trades, teams are kind of in goofy spots where you can
Mhm.
end up seeing guys shorthanded rosters and all these kind of things. This always happens trade deadline week, and sometimes a couple days after the trade deadline. But the Nets and Mavericks both play tonight. Obviously both teams have no thought at all that any of these players will suit up
Correct.
for them tonight. Chances are they may not even be in the cities yet where they need to be to do that. But yeah, I mean, Luca is questionable right now. He's got that I believe it's an ankle injury, so we don't know if he'll play, or I think it's a heel injury actually. So we don't know what's going on with him. Obviously, the Nets are down Kevin Durant, so they'd like to get guys on the floor. So Woj is reporting, multiple people reporting that the trade's trying to be expanded.
Mhm.
Woj is the only one I've seen report but Dallas is basically saying, well, we got to get it done today.
Yeah.
So we'll see if if this ultimately goes through as just the 2-team construction we know about, or if it gets expanded. If it gets expanded, that gets to be even more fun because we'll see even more players and stuff moving around. So yeah, a lot of stuff to come yet with this one. I don't think we can write the full book on this story, at least from the Nets side.
Keith, I don't think this is breaking news here or anything. I'm not going to hit the button, but D'Angelo Russell just tweeted, accept the things you can't change the things you can, and have the wisdom to know the difference. I mean, that's obviously a very famous
Hmm.
quote. Is there, this, but look, that's a famous quote. You see it all the time.
Sure.
Um, but this time of year, is there something to that, you think? I mean,
I mean, maybe you can never tell with this stuff. I've told this story, but I'll tell it again because I think it's worth telling because I think it's funny. If nothing else, is I was in the visiting locker room at the Amway Center covering a Magic game, and a player on the visiting team came in and told all his teammates pregame. He said, "Hey guys, watch this," and they all gathered around. And he was a player who was in trade rumors, and he tweeted the eyeball emoji, like the whole kind of eyeballs,
mhm,
and then everybody cracked up laughing watching it as like just how crazy the
yeah.
replies and quote tweets and everything went to that. So it was that's just sometimes guys tweet stuff. Sometimes it's maybe they heard something, maybe they heard a rumor somewhere. I don't know. I mean, Chris Paul was pretty open today saying like, hey, I heard stuff on Twitter, just like when I actually
Yeah.
got traded. Before I heard about it through Twitter first. So Chris Haynes told the story on his podcast with Mark Stein, that he reached out to Chris Paul and was like, "Hey, I'd like to report it, but if it's going to cause you problem," Chris Paul, and apparently his response was, "Hey, man, you got work. You got a job to do too. So do what you got to do." So it's as much as I have a tweet now that I bookmarked that is something like, I will not overreact to players tweeting eyeball emojis, and like I repeated like 8 times, and then I said proceeds to overreact to players tweeting eyeball emojis. Like that's kind of what this is to me.
See, mine is like I won't overreact to any specific rumor.
Hmm.
'Cause I've literally like from people who would know things, I've heard, like, conflicting information just over the last few days. I mean,
Yep.
it's just this time of year, and
Yeah.
so anyway, this dealer
Lion
thing,
season.
it's nothing until it's something.
Yep.
Nothing until it's something.
Yep.
All right, let's talk a little bit about LeBron James. We didn't talk a lot about his reaction potentially to the Kyrie situation. Well, he actually gave a reaction. Did an interview with Mike Wilbon on ESPN, and he reacted to the Kyrie trade and said, yes, he's disappointed that it didn't go down, but he's already refocused and he's focused on this team and making a push and thinks that they can contend with anybody and all of that sort of stuff. This was a very quick for a LeBron that's been, he's been on Twitter, he's been tweeting the kind of stuff you're talking about, kind of the eyeball emoji type stuff. He was very quick to, I don't want to say walk it back, but give his response that seemed to de-escalate any type of thought that maybe he's upset with the situation. What was your take on that?
Yeah, first of all, I thought it was pretty cool that he'd even go on record, right? Because a
Yeah,
lot of guys would wait to be interviewed, pregame or postgame, and in a situation like that, or pre or post practice, and basically give the like, "Hey, I'm with these guys who are in my locker room." Like, I thought it was cool that he pretty openly said, like, "Yeah, I was hoping we'd get him, right?" And we didn't, so now we are moving forward with the guys who are here, and I think LeBron is also, I've said this repeatedly, he's one of the smartest guys we've had in the game ever. So I think he's in a position where he knows they're not done. It's not like, well, the Kyrie trade didn't happen, so this is the Lakers roster for the rest of the year. There's still a lot of stuff that could happen before Thursday. So I think he is in a position where it's, hey, we just gonna kind of move forward with that. So, but I thought it was neat that he just, recognized it anyway. I thought it was kind of funny, and I made a joke about it when he tweeted last night. I was like, that sounds like a title of a Taylor Swift song, right? Because it was just kind of funny, and it kind of did sound like a title of a
Maybe
Taylor
it's
Swift
me.
song. Yeah, right. So it's like, I mean, it's kind of just funny, but like we're in a position where I thought it was neat that he actually addressed it today and said what he said about it. Like I think that's cool. It's hard because these guys, they walk a fine line because one, there can be whole tampering issues and all
Sure.
that stuff, but also like you don't want to say something and then have to turn around and walk in the locker room and be like, "Hey, what's up, Russ? Like ready to go
Yeah,
tonight?"
right?
Like, right? Because that's hard, right? I mean, they're people at the end of the day, and people like to, well, they make millions of dollars. Like that doesn't prevent you from having feelings. Like stuff happens. So it's just, yeah. But I thought it was refreshing. I guess is the best way to put it. They actually gave a real answer to what his thoughts were on it, and we'll kind of see where it goes from here.
Yeah, we'll see, and I mean, potentially, there's some strategy behind it as well in terms of, he's not coming out and saying Lakers have to get something done. I think that pressure is gonna presume to be there regardless, but he's not putting that added pressure. He tried to maybe walk back some of that a little bit so that, there isn't that, "Hey, you guys need to get something done, so you better give us everything you've got because
Mhm.
LeBron wants you to get something done," right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
always gonna be there, but that interview, I think, didn't hurt either. Um
Yeah, and the reality is, I mean, we can all say that the Lakers should have done X, Y, and Z, and you can scream and yell that the Nets should have taken the Lakers
Sure.
offer. It's and those kind of things. But the reality is, teams are going to do what's best for themselves today, tomorrow, multiple years down the line. And I mean, it is funny that people are laughing about like, and I've made the jokes too in the past of like, we're really worried about 12 and 14-year olds. Like, well, what are we doing here?
Right.
But like that is a concern, and it's not always a concern for anybody who's involved in the trade right now. It's generally more a concern for ownership and people like that who are like, "Hey, you'll be long gone, retired by the time we're making those picks. We'll probably have a different general manager and coach and different players. But like I'm still going to be here, and I'm going to have to deal with the fallout of like, hey, we don't have any picks for the next half decade or
Yep.
more. So that's something to factor in as well with that. I will say this: if we can touch on that whole portion of that reporting, it's been a little odd to me that we're getting this many specifics, and
Right?
it seems weird. Like, where would these be coming from?
I wanted to
Because
talk to you about this.
yeah, because if it's the Nets, like why? Like the Nets are you're burning bridges, right? If you're the
Yeah.
ones leaking it, if it's the
And
other
you
team,
don't want your fans saying, "Oh, you should have taken that offer or you should have done that."
yeah.
It doesn't benefit the Nets,
I don't. The
right?
Suns one is the one that's particularly confusing because
Mhm.
that's a little like, hey, if they're the ones putting it out there, like, hey, we offered Chris Paul, like that's how hard we tried to
Doesn't
get him. Like
benefit
that
them.
seems a little odd with this. The Lakers one doesn't seem as crazy to me because I think we all knew, right? We all knew it was Russ picks and stuff if need be. I will say this: I don't think at any point anybody was going to let Austin Reeves and Max Christie be the difference between getting a Kyrie Irving trade done or not. I don't think the Lakers were holding back those two guys. They just, I know it's hard because we all get, I'm dealing with it with Celtics fans right now. We're like, well, we can't give up this player. And it's like, that
Sure.
dude plays like once every 2 weeks, whether it's Peyton Pritchard or some other guy at the end of the bench. Like Austin Reeves is a nice young player, pending free agent, needs signed. Max Christie, I mean, he's not even a regular rotation guy. He plays occasionally, right, for them. So it's not like you were talking like, hey, we're giving up, some amazing bench player who's under team control for years and years and years. It's like we got to have a little balance with this. So I don't think that's what held anything up there. I think it was the Nets looked at it and said, we like this offer better. We're getting a different pick that we really value, and we're getting a couple guys where they keep them or not. We'll see. But I think that's if you're the net side, it is we're going here. So that I just want to make sure we talked about that briefly too.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, the Nets. We talked about it yesterday. I actually I thought they got a pretty good deal given the
Hmm.
circumstances. I thought the pieces they had, and who knows, maybe it'll be Fred Van Vliet in a moment here,
Hmm.
depending on what happens with that.
Yeah, for a
Um,
team that had no leverage, right? Like
yes,
completely no leverage at all. Like yes, I agree. They did quite well for themselves.
There is a rumor out there. This is from Shams Charania that a Utah Jazz Lakers trade, which we've heard in the past, would include Jake Fisher had the pieces, would include Mike Conley. It would have you would have Jared Vanderbilt in the mix as well. And Beasley. You have all these pieces, and it would be, according to Shams Charania, for Russell Westbrook, would be a one pick trade for the Lakers. That to me, that doesn't feel like a very Danny Ainge deal, Keith. I mean, I for
Yeah.
The Lakers side of me says, I hope that's true, but I don't. That doesn't have the ring of truth to it. And we've talked about from the Lakers side. Would you actually do it if it was both the picks and all that? And we can go back and forth on that. But that doesn't seem like a very Danny Ainge deal, does it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't because it feels like you're letting the Lakers off the hook pretty easily there because we've all along assumed it's one pick to take on Russ, and then the other pick is for whatever you're getting right in that trade. So that's how you want to think about that. And I think, yeah, if you're the Jazz, like, yeah, you're gonna tell them like, no, we need both. And maybe the Lakers have looked at it and said, we're not doing both. Like,
Yeah,
we're gonna hold firm here and say no. Like, either you take the one pick, and good luck if you can get better. And I tend to think Utah maybe does better than if they split those guys up in individual trades. But yeah, it's one of those where if it's Russ and a pick for those three guys, done. Why are we even
yeah.
wait? Like
Call
that
it in,
trade call should have been scheduled. Let's
right?
go. Like, yeah, that's madness if we're holding on that. And I could get if they were holding like, okay, we got to play out the Kyrie thing. But that's
Sure.
done now. That ship has sailed. So yeah, get on this one and get moving because you're not going to get better than adding three really good depth pieces. Probably would instantly be the three best players coming off the bench. I think without a doubt for the Lakers, maybe even Conley starts. But that would all get sorted
Yeah.
itself. But like that's three really good guys that you'd be getting coming in with some modicum of team control and those kind of things moving forward on those guys. So yeah, that something seems off with that reporting. It just seems weird from both sides.
Now, on the flip side, there was also a report that the Jazz see those players as each worth a first round pick individually.
Mhm.
That also doesn't seem very
Yeah,
likely
right.
to me. So maybe somewhere in the middle is where is where that ultimately would exist.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump over to the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry. Oh boy. No, Keith, we talked about it a little bit on the live stream yesterday. I don't fully understand what the injury is. I it, very technical, but the bottom line is the Warriors are going to be without Steph Curry for a period of time. Most likely, this is going to knock him out of the All Star game. We're probably looking at, according to Zach Lowe, a month maybe of no Steph Curry for the Golden State Warriors. That's tough in a very compact Western Conference. I'm not predicting that they're going to drop out of the playoff race or anything like that. I think they can still stay afloat, but that's going to be difficult for them to battle through here.
No, without a doubt. I think the silver lining, good news, if you're saying it's anywhere from the 3 to 4 week range, is one of those weeks is the All-Star break. So there's
Yeah,
no games. You're not missing him for any kind of games. Because if you're the Warriors, you just assume he doesn't play in the All-Star game anyway,
right.
right? Because there's nothing really to be gained by that. You're happy you got named, but you're not upset that he's going to miss that. It sounds like there's no like severe structural damage from what they said the injury is, and then I read Jeff Stott's breakdown of it. Sounds like it's what it is it's a series of like things that are wrong, and mostly what it sounds like reading is it's just extremely painful, which is why he can't play through it. But it is something that's non-surgical, it will heal with time and all that. So if it's 3 weeks to a month, you're fine. If you're the Warriors, you'd rather not, obviously, but you can get through that. If it turns into like 6 to 8 weeks, then that becomes a major problem, right? Because now you're talking, we got to get through a large chunk of the rest of the season without Steph, and that gets really, really difficult. So let's see, if we get any more details. This will probably turn into we'll update, because I think the Warriors' official update was, we'll update more when appropriate or whatever it is they put on that. We'll see if that turns into, just before the All-Star break, maybe just after the All-Star break, we get an update. But yeah, I would say definitely no All-Star for Steph Curry. And then the question becomes, when do we see him play again?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Is this an easy? I mean, the question has been posed: what happens with the All Star situation with Kyrie now moving to the West? Now with Curry moving out, does that then mean an Eastern Conference player needs to come in?
Yeah, so there was a little bit of reporting to this that said the NBA won't do anything with the Kyrie part of it because
Okay,
they don't feel necessarily the need to fully upset the apple cart there, because Kyrie is the conferences don't really matter once
they
the
don't
teams are
matter,
named.
right?
So it sounds like what they'll do is they're just going to name a straight injury replacement for Stephen Curry. You know, De'Aaron Fox, Anthony Edwards, whoever they go to with that. We've seen both of those names seem to be the ones that most often are being mentioned, and both very, very deserving to go if they go. So we'll see with that. But yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. Whereas do you like, could that be the way, right? Just move Kyrie over, and then another East guy gets to go. Maybe James Harden
Mhm.
gets named in the Eastern Conference. I don't even know if Adam Silver can just be like, look, I pick whoever I damn well please now. Like, and I put in whoever. I
Right.
don't have to deal with any of this conference or position stuff because it's all out the window. So I really don't know what to make of all of
Well, Anthony Davis has already talked about how excited he is to go on vacation with his family instead of go to the
it.
All-Star game. So I know which way he is hoping this goes, and it's not him.
The veteran guys, once they've been several times, they would just as soon, many of them,
Yeah,
I would love to be named and then just not go. They would rather have like, hey, I want the 4 or 5 days. I can be off. I can go hang out with my family somewhere warm too, because it's not like this is in Miami or in Southern California where it's going to be nice and warm. It's in Utah, which is beautiful, but it's not like
that's
everybody's
cool.
flocking there in the middle of February for the weather,
Like the
right?
salmon of
Necessarily. So
Capistrano.
yeah, right. So yeah, so I think a lot of these guys are like, hey, get me somewhere, get me down into, the Caribbean, or down into, somewhere in Mexico, somewhere nice and warm. I'm going to hang out there for a few days, recharge, and be ready to go. So, yeah, I don't blame Anthony Davis, because the funniest locker rooms in the world are the ones right before the All-Star break, because guys, they are like, all right, you need a post game interview out of me. Yeah, we
Yep.
played, game happened, we won, we lost. See you next week. Like, that's it. Like,
Both teams
they,
played hard. I got a
yeah,
flight to
yeah,
catch.
yeah. Everybody was there. Safe travels, everyone. And like, guys are like running out of that locker room to catch flights that night, to scattered all over the place. So
Honestly,
yeah, it's fun.
it's a classroom before spring break, man. It's the way it goes.
That's why you get weird results too, right
Yeah,
before the All
yeah,
Star break. Because I mean, the Celtics last year absolutely tearing through the league at that point, and they lost to the Detroit Pistons right before the All Star break, and everybody's like, "What happened?" Like, it snapped a huge win streak, and where did this go? And it's like, yeah, it was an unfocused effort, because half the roster was already on vacation in their
yeah.
minds somewhere. Yeah,
They got their flip flops in the
hmm
locker room and they're ready to go. Yep.
that's it.
Hey, speaking of the Celtics, I didn't even put this down as a topic. So, but I'll just ask you, just flat out. Is Jaylen Brown getting traded for Kevin Durant? Like, is this happening?
Well, as we record this on Monday night, Jaylen Brown is out of the lineup due to an
Right?
illness last
Eyeball
minute. So
emojis.
yeah, so I 100% assume that means he's going to be traded. No, I don't know. I don't think so, because this would take the Nets going in a very different direction. That seems like the one they're going in, which would obviously be they're trading Kevin Durant. I will continue to say what I said over the summer about this. If it was Jaylen Brown plus one other thing to match salary plus a draft pick, you have to do it if you're the Celtics. Kevin Durant is that good. You would go into any playoff series knowing, at the very worst, we have two of the best three players on the floor,
Yep.
if not the two best players on the floor. There's only a handful of series you would go into where that may not be true. The other thing, though, is if it is what it was over the summer, which was Jaylen Brown plus, 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 that's too much. Then you don't do it, because then you erode your depth. You make a big mess of your roster right now, and then you end up in a spot where it doesn't. It's not going to go the way you want it to go. So that's where I think we're very much in a position where I don't think anything's happening here, mostly because I don't think the Nets are doing anything. So that's kind of where I see that.
Keith, this is a complete aside and doesn't have anything to do with our show whatsoever. Is Robert Williams playing tonight?
He is, I believe.
Okay,
He should be. He wasn't on the
my
injury
fantasy
report.
team needs to know. So this was important that I put this into the show. But
Luke
appreciate
Cornett
that.
is out though
Okay,
with a sprained ankle. Not that anybody should have Luke Cornett on any form of fantasy roster anywhere,
right.
but just in case.
All right, let's finish up with this. So a little bit of business. The CBA opt-out deadline pushed back again.
Officially too. The tweet just
Yep,
came out.
I just saw it.
Yeah.
So we celebrated this when it happened the first time because
Yep.
we said this is a good sign that they're talking. They're not just that's it. We're opting out and tear this thing up, and because that can push you towards a bad place. What are your thoughts on it now that this has been pushed back again? Is that still a good sign that okay, the sides are still talking, they're still optimistic that they're gonna, figure this thing out, or how should we take this?
Yeah, I think this continues to be good news. It is not great news for the teams and players who are wondering if we'd have any form of CBA changes, trade rule changes, contract changes, extension changes done prior to the trade deadline, or
Mhm.
just even a sense of this is what the future of the CBA will look like. Unfortunately, we don't have that, so everybody's kind of going in with, are we going to run with what we know today? But this is good news, because this is two sides are working together still. So this is not being done out of animosity, because if there was animosity, they would not have agreed. One side or the other would have said we're opting out, and that's it, and we move forward. So again, nothing would have happened this season. This season is fine. We'll get all the way through the NBA finals and the NBA draft. Draft, just I don't know how many people know, that's kind of the last major event on the league calendar each year, because this would really take effect July 1st. If there was going to be any kind of stoppage or anything like that, it would all happen July 1st. But I don't think we're going to get there. I think both sides are working together. They're probably ironing out details. Sounds like ownership has basically said, hey, that upper spending limit, which is this is the absolute
Yeah.
max any team can spend. Sounds like they've let that go. The players union was never going to let that get pushed through without significant concessions elsewhere. So my guess is this is, hey, we can't iron out all these details in the next few days. Let's push back again. We bought ourselves another basically 2 months because now it's the end of March. We'll get everything hammered out, ironed out. We'll be ready to go, and we'll move right into July with a new CBA and moving forward, and we'll have a whole bunch of new stuff to learn and new rules and all that other stuff because there will be changes coming for sure.
Now it was mentioned, and I can't remember, maybe it was Mark Stein or somebody said this, that this does complicate things a little bit at the trade deadline because teams would ideally like to know exactly what's in this new CBA and
That
what
was
rules
Woj.
okay, that was Woj. Okay,
Yeah.
so what's in that? So it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean teams aren't going to make trades at the deadline or anything, but there's just that little bit of extra uncertainty that they
Mhm.
have to factor into their decision making.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They've got to work through a little bit more now with, all right, where are we? The trade is done. Uh, the Kyrie trade is official.
So no Fred Van Vliet.
No changes. No, yeah, no roping in another team.
See that?
Uh, looks that's from Shams Charania, Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, 2029, and the 2 seconds all from Dallas that we knew headed to Brooklyn. So
Okay.
looks
So
like they
Nets
couldn't
were
get it
not
done.
able, yeah, not able
Yeah.
to come to an agreement with the Raptors. And like I said, there was that time constraint. They needed to get it
Yeah.
done so the Mavs could process the trade and move on.
So let's get into that if we can, just
Sure.
briefly, why that matters. Because I did have a couple people like, well, what difference? Just do whatever you're going to do tomorrow with the guys you have. It doesn't necessarily work that way because now the Nets can't aggregate Dinwiddie and Finney Smith with other outgoing salary. They have to be traded as individual pieces. So what they would have been doing is, hey, we're sending out 36 million in Kyrie Irving salary, almost 37 million after his trade bonus. We can bring in, X money for that and then reroute Dinwiddie, Finney Smith, whatever it is, somewhere, or we could have, if it was like, hey, we're gonna send Dinwiddie and I don't know, Stephen or Seth Curry rather to the Raptors. Great. So that happens now. We fold them into the deal or whatever it is. That's how that could have gotten done. Now it's just a little harder if they want to do that. So if they want to go get Fred Van Vliet or another point guard or whatever it is, it just becomes that much trickier for them. And they won't it's now at the 60-day reaggregation restriction for the Nets on those guys. So that won't be able to happen at any time before the deadline. So
Yeah.
so this is probably what it is. My guess is those guys aren't necessarily going anywhere. They're probably sticking right where they are.
Yeah, I was gonna say makes it significantly more likely that it is what it is. It's going to be Spencer Dinwiddie
Yeah.
going to the Nets.
Yeah. Oh, and Des Shams just clarified too. Markieff Morris still involved and still being traded to Dallas too. So
Okay.
we're
Yeah,
there.
don't forget about Markeith.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, that should about wrap things up for today. But again, trade deadline coming up on Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. A lot to break down, I'm sure, over the course of the week. So make sure you are subscribing to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. And don't forget to go find the podcast version on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.